what are the different three scriptings? Because that's what I started. Because what are the three different scriptings we have? One is about Java scripting. Second is called Perl scripting. Third is a Groovy scripting. How it is different. Now, if you want to understand about the scripting from the Java, Perl, and as well as Groovy, this will be differentiated into three parts, few parts. One is about we have to identify the difference between syntax and reliability, because for every scripting, whatever we do, or for every program, whenever we write, there will be some syntax is there. Okay. Syntax is what something which we have to see.
Okay.
Okay. Syntax is the first one which we have to be seen with. Now, when it comes to the Java scripting, when you are comparing with Perl scripting and Groovy scripting, etc., right? So when you are trying to understand the scripting from this context, generally when we are working on the Java scripting syntax is majorly more or less same as the kind of Java applications what we are working on. Understood? Clear, right? Karthik, right?
Yes, sir.
So because whatever the Java syntaxes we
Yes,
are
sir.
using, yeah, tell me. Yeah, you are asking something. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Karthik. You're asking something. Okay, fine. So when it comes to the syntaxes itself is concerned, when we talk about Java, Java syntaxes, Java scripting syntaxes are more or less like same like Java programming language. Means whatever the programming we are working on, the same syntaxes will be useful here. At the same time, when it comes to the readability part, it is very simple for us to read, because if a person is having an idea over the programming language in context to the Java itself is concerned, readability in context to the Java scripting syntaxes and all everything will be simple. Okay. Now, the next, when we are comparing syntax readability and all everything from the Perl point of view, because Perl is also one of the scripting language since the olden time we are using. But advantage under when it comes to the Perl scripting and all everything is itself is concerned, it is more of complex related projects, because advantage from the complex point of view, because Perl scripting is more complex when you are comparing from Java scripting to Groovy, because Java and Groovy are almost one or the same level. But when it comes to the Perl scripting, it was not the case, because Perl scripting has an advantage. What kind of advantage is that? When we are working on some complex projects, then only Perl scripting will be more advantageous to you. So one way I can say this is an advantage for the people who are working on. At the same time, there will be some disadvantages, because Perl scripting is not something, or the kind of syntaxes whatever we are using is not something required, or is not something possible for us to implement for all the projects. Because when there is any complexity which we have seen, especially on the projects, so where if you want to make any kind of scripting, wants to make it more simple, okay, at the same time complex projects and all, then Perl scripting is being used, the kind of syntaxes we use. At the same time, even to understanding Perl scripting will be such a difficult thing, because normally, especially people who are new to the scripting languages, if they want to learn anything about the scripting part, especially to start with, so they should have a complete understanding over the basic front, because most of the people who are coming for the scripting will come from the programming language. I'm not saying 100% people will come from that side, but most of the people I can say, right? So most of the people come from the programming language and all. So Groovy scripting is more or less like as and when I said, because Groovy scripting is easy for us to understand, because whatever the kind of code and whatever the kind of syntaxes are we using in Groovy, it's more or less something same like the Java code what we have done and all that. So then the advantage is that a person who is coming from Java programming side, or a person whoever is having knowledge over the Java scripting, So those people performs Groovy scripting more better when you are comparing to the Perl scripting, because Perl scripting has a disadvantage when it is highly complex, as it you can see, highly complex scripting. Because if there is any kind of complex applications we wants to develop, this is what something normally we use. This is the difference among Java scripting, Perl Groovy scripting, from the context of syntax and readability is all about. Now, second point. Second point, object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming means any application or any programming language normally we use, there is a concept called OOPS. OOPS stands for object-oriented programming, all that. So when it comes to the object-oriented programming itself is concerned, generally this object-oriented programming is more something similar even for JavaScripting and Groovy scripting also. The reason we always advise people who are learning Groovy scripting should have a knowledge over the basics of Java programming for sure, so that it is easy for people to understand. At least I'm talking about soups concepts, encapsulation, polymorphism, right? So there are different things like encapsulation, polymorphism, all that. So that sort of understanding especially required if you are moving towards object-oriented programming. So Groovy scripting, because if you want to understand the Groovy scripting or something of that sort, object programming is something more of easier. And this object-oriented programming, Groovy scripting as well as Java scripting are more or less like same, because both are working on same Java virtual machine and as well as Java working code, Java code. But whereas when it comes to Perl scripting, it was not the case. Perl scripting is something different on its size, whatever the scripting part we do, and whatever the scripting languages are we going to use, majorly uses the system level language, right? So system level programming is what something we work on. So when they are working on the system level or low level programming, low level program requires lot of algorithms to be used, because we require some algorithms and all everything we have to use. For that reason, generally Perl scripting is something more challenging when you are comparing from Java scripting to Groovy scripting. This is point number 2. Third point about the communities and libraries. Now, when it comes to the communities and libraries, because there are different Java libraries which normally you use. When it comes to the Java scripting libraries or Groovy scripting libraries, this Java and as well as Groovy scripting libraries are something one of the same, because this is where generally I think you might be knowing about a programming language called Rails. Have you heard anything of that sort? Rails, Ruby on Rails. Or...
No, sir.
Okay, right. So because Ruby on Rails, Groovy on Rails, right? So there are different programming languages we use, like ROR we call it as, right? So Ruby on Rails, Groovy on Rails, all that. So whatever the libraries we are using in Groovy scripting as well as Java scripting are both the same, because the same Java libraries are being used even in the Groovy scripting, because Groovy scripting more of Groovy on Rails, Ruby on Rails, all that. Java scripting mainly relating to the Java programming language, but end of the day, whatever the virtual machine concept of the console we follow, everything we follow JVM only. Java virtual machine libraries only we use it. But when it comes to the Perl scripting point of view, when it comes to the communities and libraries itself is concerned, it has more diversity actually, because whatever the scripting we are using, whatever the libraries and the modules we are using, so all these are something more or less majorly used for various different tasks when we are working on. Either it can be administration point of view, or if you want to generate any kind of text processing, or if you want to do any kind of web development, right? So for different purposes and all, community libraries from the context of Perl scripting is majorly useful for. But when it comes to the Groovy scripting as well as Java scripting and all, because whatever the community libraries we are using are more or less the same, because the same libraries, Java libraries, will be used for the Java scripting. At the same time, whatever the Grails or Groovy on Grails or Ruby on Rails scripting we have, the libraries, whatever we use, those will be used in the Groovy script. So these are the three major differences you see from the scripting part. The first one about syntax and readability. Syntax and readability from Java to Groovy are the same, but syntaxes are more complex in Perl scripting. Majorly when we are working on the complex projects, we use it. Point number two, object-oriented programming. Basics of object-oriented programming is one the same when you are comparing Java scripting and Groovy scripting, but it is slightly different from Perl scripting because this is more high level, low level programming language where we required a lot of algorithms and all everything you should be used in the Perl scripting point of view. The third, community and as well as the libraries, whatever the community libraries are we going to use, these communities, libraries and all everything, one the same. Either it can be for Java scripting or Groovy scripting and all. Community libraries and all everything were same. But when it comes to the Perl scripting and all, it was not the case. So these are the major three differences wherein today I discussed. Of course, there are a couple of, we have some ease of integration is one of the area wherein to be focused on. At the same time, we must be knowing about the performance and at the same time, community adoption and job opportunities. So these part I'm going to discuss in tomorrow.